History, they say, is written by the victors. The British Empire, in its long and storied past, has certainly cast a long shadow, projecting its version of events onto the world stage. Yet, beneath the veneer of glory and progress, a darker narrative festers, a story not of benevolent paternalism and civilizing missions, but one of exploitation, brutality, and calculated greed. This is the history rarely spoken of, the skeletons in the imperial closet, the inconvenient truths that challenge the carefully constructed narrative of a glorious past. This essay delves into those shadowed corners, exploring the lesser-known atrocities perpetrated in the name of empire. We journey beyond the familiar tales of conquest and rebellion, instead focusing on the insidious systemic injustices that fueled Britain's rise to global dominance. Prepare to be shocked, to be angered, for the truth, as they say, is often far stranger and far more horrifying than fiction. The 19th century saw Britain, riding high on its industrial revolution, turn a hungry eye towards the East. The rapid advancements in technology and manufacturing had transformed Britain into a global powerhouse. But with this newfound industrial might came an insatiable demand for resources and markets. The East, particularly China, with its vast wealth and rich cultural heritage, presented an irresistible allure to British merchants and politicians alike. China, with its vast wealth and seemingly insatiable appetite for tea, presented a tantalizing opportunity. Tea had become a staple in British society, a symbol of sophistication and refinement. The British elite's demand for this exotic beverage grew exponentially, and with it, the need to secure a steady supply. However, the Chinese were largely self-sufficient and had little interest in British goods, creating a significant trade imbalance that frustrated British traders. The problem? Britain had little to offer in return, save for one insidious commodity: opium. This potent narcotic, derived from the poppy plant, was already known for its addictive properties. The British East India Company, always on the lookout for profitable ventures, saw an opportunity to exploit this addiction for economic gain. They began cultivating opium on a massive scale in the fertile plains of India, transforming the region into a vast drug-producing enterprise. Grown in the fertile plains of India, under the watchful eye of the East India Company, opium became Britain's secret weapon, a tool to pry open the Chinese market and tilt the balance of trade in its favour. The opium was transported along well-established trade routes, making its way into the heart of China. The British traders, with the backing of their government, flooded the Chinese market with opium, creating a cycle of addiction that was difficult to break. The consequences were devastating. Opium addiction ripped through China's social fabric, leaving a trail of broken lives and economic ruin in its wake. Families were torn apart as individuals succumbed to the drug's grip, spending their meagre earnings on opium instead of food and necessities. The social and economic impact was profound, weakening the very foundations of Chinese society and making it increasingly difficult for the government to maintain order. When the Chinese government attempted to stem the flow of this destructive drug, Britain responded with overwhelming military force. The Chinese authorities, recognizing the catastrophic impact of opium on their population, took measures to ban its import and destroy existing stockpiles. However, these efforts were met with fierce resistance from the British, who saw their lucrative trade threatened. The resulting conflict, known as the Opium Wars, was a brutal demonstration of imperial might. The Opium Wars, as they came to be known, were a brutal demonstration of imperial might, forcing China to its knees and cementing Britain's dominance in the region. The British military, with its superior technology and tactics, easily overpowered the Chinese forces. The wars were marked by significant bloodshed and destruction, leaving a lasting scar on the Chinese psyche and further entrenching British influence in the region. The Treaty of Nanking, signed in 1842, was a humiliating blow, ceding Hong Kong to British control and ushering in a century of Chinese subjugation and exploitation. This treaty marked the beginning of what the Chinese refer to as the Century of Humiliation, a period characterized by foreign domination and internal strife. The loss of Hong Kong was not just a territorial concession, but a symbol of China's weakened sovereignty and the devastating impact of the opium trade. India, the so-called jewel in the crown of the British Empire, endured a different kind of exploitation. This exploitation was not just about the extraction of wealth, but also about the systematic dismantling of India's social and economic fabric. While the British took pride in their supposed mission of civilizing India, the reality on the ground was far more sinister. The British narrative of bringing progress and enlightenment was a facade that masked the brutal reality of their rule. India's vast resources were ruthlessly plundered, its people subjected to a system designed to extract maximum profit with minimal investment. The British systematically drained India's wealth, transferring it to Britain, leaving the local population impoverished. This rapacious approach to governance had devastating consequences, most notably in the form of recurring famines that decimated the Indian population. These famines were not mere natural disasters, but were exacerbated by British policies that prioritized revenue collection over human welfare. Millions perished in these avoidable tragedies, their deaths a direct result of British policies that prioritized profit over human life. The British administration's focus on exporting food from India, even during times of scarcity, led to widespread starvation and death. The British administration, blinded by its own sense of superiority, failed to invest in infrastructure or provide adequate relief efforts. They ignored the suffering of the Indian people, believing that their own economic theories and policies were infallible. Instead, they clung to the cruel logic of free market economics, believing that famine was a natural check on population growth. This misguided belief led to a lack of intervention and relief, exacerbating the suffering of millions. The human cost of this callous indifference was staggering, leaving an indelible scar on the Indian psyche and serving as a chilling reminder of the dark underbelly of imperial rule. The legacy of these policies is still felt today, as the scars of colonial exploitation continue to impact India's development and social fabric. The story of India's exploitation under British rule is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating impact of policies that prioritize profit over people. It is a chapter of history that must not be forgotten, as it holds valuable lessons for the present and the future. Today, India stands as a testament to resilience and the enduring spirit of its people. Despite the scars of the past, the nation continues to rebuild and strive towards a future of self-reliance and prosperity. The journey is ongoing, but the lessons of history serve as a guiding light, reminding us of the importance of justice, equity, and humanity in governance. The stolen treasures of Benin City, cultural genocide in the name of empire. This is a story of loss, of cultural devastation, and of the relentless pursuit of power and control. In 1897, a British military expedition descended upon Benin City, the heart of a powerful and sophisticated kingdom in present-day Nigeria. This kingdom was renowned for its advanced art, intricate bronze sculptures, and a rich cultural heritage that had been cultivated over centuries. The reason for this unprovoked attack? It was a calculated move by the British Empire, driven by greed and a desire to expand their influence in West Africa, to secure British control over trade routes and resources, and to punish the Benin people for daring to resist British encroachment. The Benin Kingdom had fiercely protected its sovereignty and its people, standing as a formidable barrier to British colonial ambitions. What followed was an act of shocking brutality. The British forces, armed with superior weaponry and driven by a sense of entitlement, unleashed a wave of violence that would forever scar the history of Benin. Benin City, a center of art and culture, was looted and burned to the ground. The flames consumed not just buildings, but the very essence of a civilization that had thrived for centuries. Thousands of its inhabitants were massacred, their bodies left to rot in the streets. The air was thick with the stench of death and destruction, a grim testament to the horrors of colonial conquest. But the true horror lay in the systematic plunder of Benin's cultural heritage. The British soldiers, with a cold and calculated efficiency, stripped the city of its most precious artifacts. Thousands of priceless artifacts, including the famed Benin bronzes, were looted and shipped back to Britain, where they remain to this day, scattered across museums and private collections. These bronzes, each a masterpiece of craftsmanship, were more than just objects. They were the embodiment of the Benin people's history and identity. This act of cultural genocide stripped the Benin people of their history, their identity, their very soul. The loss was not just physical, but deeply spiritual, as the connection to their ancestors and their past was severed. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of imperial ambition, where cultural treasures were seen as mere trinkets to be plundered and displayed as trophies of conquest. The legacy of this atrocity continues to haunt the descendants of the Benin Kingdom as they strive to reclaim their stolen heritage and restore the dignity of their ancestors. Today, there are ongoing efforts to repatriate these stolen artifacts, to return them to their rightful home. This movement is not just about returning objects, but about healing a wound that has festered for over a century. It is about acknowledging the wrongs of the past and taking steps towards justice and reconciliation. The global community has begun to recognize the importance of this cause, with museums and private collectors facing increasing pressure to return the artifacts. This growing awareness is a beacon of hope for the Benin people, a sign that the world is finally listening to their cries for justice. As the Benin people continue to celebrate their rich cultural heritage, they do so with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. They honor their ancestors by preserving their traditions and passing them on to future generations, ensuring that the spirit of Benin will never be extinguished. The story of Benin is one of resilience and hope. Despite the atrocities committed against them, the Benin people have never lost their sense of identity or their connection to their past. They stand as a testament to the enduring power of culture and the unbreakable spirit of a people determined to reclaim their heritage and their history. Conclusion: the long shadow of empire. The stories recounted here are but a glimpse into the dark heart of the British Empire. They reveal a pattern of exploitation, violence, and cultural destruction that left an indelible mark on the world. The legacy of this troubled past is still felt today, in the political and economic disparities that continue to plague former colonies, in the ongoing struggles for self-determination, and in the fight to reclaim stolen cultural heritage. As we grapple with the complexities of our shared history, it is imperative that we acknowledge these uncomfortable truths, that we move beyond the sanitized narratives of the past and confront the full spectrum of the imperial legacy. Only then can we begin to understand the true cost of empire and work towards a more just and equitable future.